What's going on, family? Hello, hello, hello. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Hope you guys have been doing great. I have been doing great also. Today, we are going to have a really fun conversation. And for some of you, this is going to be pretty activating. And what I mean by activating is it might uncover some inner turmoil, conflict, potentially really uh, disrupt aspects and situations in your life. And so I want us all to begin by making sure that we are all in the right nervous system when we are talking about today's conversation. And that's about the masks we wear. The masks we wear to function on a day to day basis with people in our lives, in circumstances and situations in them, and the effect of what those masks are. How do they help us? What purpose do they serve? And are they helping us get to the goal of what we want in our world, or are they hindering us from actually achieving it? And I'll be giving examples from my own world, masks that I've worn and have noticed that I can still put on, and how I've been really coming to terms with them. And hopefully, you will find within yourself the same resonance or patterns, and you will make a conscious effort to either be aware of them or to remove them. So let's just start off today with taking a few deep breaths. I'm going to do what's called parasympathetic activation breath. So this is where we're going to switch ourselves from the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight nervous system. It's the one that produces the chemistry of fight or flight, and that's typically going to be cortisol and epinephrine and adrenaline. Those are important chemicals in our body, but as we're all sitting here having a candlelight conversation, we really don't need our nervous system to be activated in that level. And there's a reason why yours might be activated in that level, especially if you're watching this on your phone. You might have been scrolling before this came on and seen something that activated it. Maybe it was an ad, possibly someone showing you the highlight reel of their life, and it got you thinking about what's going on in yours, whatever that is. So how we activate the parasympathetic nervous system is we take a deep breath in through our nose, and then we let out our breath at the count of 8. Okay. And we do it through pursed lips like this. Okay. So we're going to just take a deep breath in and out for 8. All right. We'll do that 2 more times. And 1 more time. All right. So let's talk about it, right? The masks we wear and what was the purpose of them. So one of the most, I'd say, common masks that we wear are the masks that we use to stay within our tribe, within the social structure or the group that we belong to. And we learned when we were really, really young, our parents would correct us and either get mad at us or make us feel like we weren't a part of the family, or maybe make us feel like we were threatened to be pushed out of belonging to the family. And it was when we did something that they didn't like, right? When, uh, let's just say, for instance, we cried for something or we whined for something and we didn't get it. And instead of our parent maybe bringing us a little bit closer and creating more connection there, and giving us what we really desired, which is just interaction and love. They made us feel as if the behavior was unacceptable. And because it was unacceptable, we had to correct and we had to learn that that wasn't something that we were okay expressing. It wasn't allowed. And if we continued to express this, then we would be kicked out of the group, or we would be shunned, or we would make our person upset, the person who we relied on, the thing that we relied on for survival, our food, our connection, mom's milk, that is a real tether that we have to our families. And so it begins there. It began in early childhood, from the ages of birth till 7 years old. All of those little micro ways that we were corrected and told that we shouldn't be what and who we are. And of course, you probably have seen this play out in your own life, or maybe it's playing out right now in the lives of you and your children. And so the mask, right? The mask of, for me, people pleasing was a huge one, right? I always wanted to make sure that the people in my world, the people in my orbit, were happy with me. And if that meant that I would suppress my need, if that meant that I would suppress my wants, or if that would suppress my desire, it was okay, because I was never the important thing. The important thing is cohesion. The important thing is everybody around me being happy. Now, as long as they are happy, then I get to stay in the group. And if I get to stay in the group, I'm happy too, right? And at some level, this is actually really helpful, right? It's really helpful for us because it makes people like us more. It makes people feel like we're safe to keep around. We're not going to be too challenging. We're not going to be irritating. We're not going to be making people feel as if having us around is a threat. And so again, our boundaries get completely blurred. In fact, we tend then to have no boundaries. We move in a way that is for other people. Now, if you are or have ever been in that type of character of the people pleaser, you'll know exactly what I mean, where there comes a point where it can no longer be. You break, you crack. And the problem with this is that people pleasing behavior is such a polarizing way of being, that if you think of it from a pendulum, people pleasing is swinging all the way in the direction of somebody else's benefit, someone else's idea of what we are, and living to that. And it's so suffocating to the self. It's so incoherent and out of integrity with who and what we are, that at some point we get tired of playing the character that we are exhibiting to our family and to our friends and to our coworkers and to the world, potentially, if you're in the public eye. And so that character will ultimately crack. And we see this happen in celebrities constantly, right? I mean, one really real example that I can think of right off the top of my head is watching Kanye West in the last 5 years of his career. Went from a musical genius who pushed boundaries and would say things that he felt was at some points very, very real and very, very honest and true. And maybe they weren't true for everybody, but they were definitely true for him. And we've now seen a character that I think is coming out because of how he was forced, or how he forced himself to be in conformity with what society wanted him to be. Now, this isn't excusing his perspectives or agreeing with things that he is saying at the present time, but you can see that there was definitely a character break there. And that character break is something that's common with most people who people please, who wear a mask. We can't keep the facade on for very much longer. And ultimately, that person comes out. It also rears its head when intoxicated. A lot of folks feel like when they are under the influence of alcohol, that they become someone else. And I would actually challenge that and say that it's not true, that when you're under the influence of alcohol, you become more of what you really are. And so you see these really, really interesting behaviors, right? You get the person who is quick to trigger and they get angry and they want to fight. Well, that's probably somebody who's suppressing some really, really deep-seated anger that hasn't really processed that anger and brought it to the surface and dealt with it and integrated it in a healthy way. And so when they're under the influence of alcohol, that self that's been hiding comes out, and it comes out loud and violent because it has been suppressed for so long. And you've also got those people who, when they're under the influence of alcohol, start bragging and talking big and being this, really, really extra loud character. Oftentimes that comes from a suppression or a feeling of deep, deep, deep inadequacy, right? Feeling like we were never accepted or adequate enough for the love of the people who we wanted in our life. And this was one of the things that I had. I remember as a young person, up until I say the age about 20 years old, I was an incredible liar, an incredible creator of character. And I would make things up for absolutely no reason sometimes. It was a lot just so that I could get someone to like me. I would say something or I would invent this thing that I thought that person wanted or would think is really interesting or cool. And maybe that would create some connection and make them want to have me around. Often what ended up happening was the exact opposite of that. They could sense the inauthenticity of what I was doing, and they could feel like something just isn't right about this guy. And they would actually do more of what I was trying for them not to do, which was push me away, right? And so that character will kind of rear its head. You also have those people who they have a sip of a drink and they just start crying, right? They're just like immediately emotional. And that's probably the suppression of a really, really deep wound that they haven't quite yet come to terms with, right? Some type of really, really deep injury that is still left unprocessed and kind of hanging around in the subconscious. And so we have to understand that these masks, they were never really created out of malice. They weren't made so that we could go out and be manipulative and take advantage of people. Almost every negative behavior that we exhibit as a person comes as a result of a protection mechanism, a way for us to help protect the ego, help protect the self, and to sustain us. And of course, these aren't healthy ways of managing, but they're very common. And we learn them from our friends, we learn them from our family, and then we actually start interacting with each other's characters. Now, where this becomes really funny and dangerous is when we end up in social structures or family structures where it's just character interacting with character. I'd like to ask people in the chat, how many of you have a specific character that you put on when interacting with family? I'll give you an example again in my own life. I come from an East Indian background, a Muslim East Indian background. And so there are some things about how we live that are very different from Western society. And me having grown up and being born in the West, I really never identified with a lot of the culture of my mom and dad. The music, the ideals, the values, all of that were really different because I was growing up and surrounded by a peer group that was very different from what I had seen at home. So I developed almost a split personality. I would go out into the world and I was one version of myself. And that version could be anything: a violent thug, a crafty, manipulative showman, um, someone who was willing to bend the rules or do whatever that was necessary to achieve a means, or an end. And I would really justify any means to get to the end that I wanted. But then on the other side of that, when I was home, I realized that the mask I had to wear was perfect angel, mama's favorite prodigal son, the can do no wrong boy that was just the best kid that she could ever have. And again, the character couldn't last, it couldn't survive. And so there it was, right? This massive, massive break where the character, the real Jamil who's inside there, could no longer breathe, could no longer live under this false pretense, the false character of who I was portraying on the outside to the rest of the world, and then the false character of who I was pretending to be at home. Never, ever coming to a point where I was authentic anywhere. And where this gets really dangerous is when we start to believe that the character is who we are. When we believe that the character is who we are, that is one of the biggest and most dangerous games that we play, because now we've gone completely unconscious. Now we believe that we are the character that we're playing. Imagine if Christian Bale really believed he was Batman, right? If Christian Bale really believed he was Batman, sure, the next Batman movie he'd make would be phenomenal because his acting would be just next level. But by the time he left set and continued on, and when he was, going home and interacting with family, or when he was pumping gas and he's still in his Batman outfit, at some point, there would be some eyebrows raised, and very likely a medical, where they put you in the mental ward. I forget the word of that. But there would have been a point where they would have thrown him away and said, "Hey, you got to go talk to some doctors here because there's something weird going on with you. You're not Batman." And so it's that crazy, right? It's that crazy when we're walking around in a character, because we're truly starting to believe that we are the fiction that we're creating. And then we start to believe that we're the fiction, and we interact and we create and we make life choices based on the fiction. It's pretty insane to see that. And it's also pretty insane to know that we do it. I want to ask you in the chat, how many of you play a character when you are either at work or at home? Let me know in the chat if you play a character when you're either at work or when you're at home. Some say at work, on the phones, some used to. Awesome, right? So these characters that we're playing, again, they tend to serve a purpose, right? They're there for our benefit, and we're not typically creating and inventing these characters in order to hurt ourselves or other people, for the most part, right? In some really extreme cases, that is the case, but for the most part, I'd say 99% of people who put on a mask and put on a character, they're not doing it to be harmful. They're just doing it to survive. Right now, again, the people-pleasing character is definitely one that I would say is super common. But here's a character that I think a lot of us can really resonate with. And it's the character that we play after having settled in life. When we pretend that all of the things that we really want, our dreams, our purpose, why we are really here, that none of that really matters, or that maybe it just isn't meant for us. We're not meant to live a purpose-driven life. We're absolutely here just to exist, to be, for no reason. And when we settle into that, it's a lot like in the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. If you remember in the beginning of the movie where Charlie's entire family is laying in bed and they're talking about how outside of the bed is just not fun. It's not safe. It's not anything that they want to be. When they settle, we're essentially putting ourselves in the bed and saying, well, I guess I'm not going to have any effort for the rest of this one. And we then lie to ourselves to justify all of the reasons why getting out of the bed is wrong. And then we start to tar and feather the ones outside who we see are walking and moving and truly living. And we see this played out all the time. You watch the negativity in the comment sections of people's social media. I get it all the time from people who literally wake up in the morning, find somebody who is doing something in life that might be better, or and forgive me for saying better, that is different, where they can see somebody living a purpose, or at least passionately. And it bothers them so much that there's nothing that they can do other than come and take a big dump in the comment section of that person's life, right? Or that person's page. And that's an interesting way to, I guess, shake it off, right? If I don't have the permission, or if I can't give the permission to myself to truly, really be who I am, well, then why should anybody else give themselves the permission to do that? And so we put ourselves into these polarizing camps where it's us and them. And this has happened all across the United States. It's happened all across the world. And we see these things playing out. We saw it in the politics of this country, where it's either this or it's that. And if you're on this side of the fence, well, you are a problem to everybody on this side of the fence. And if you're on that side of the fence, you're a problem to everybody on here. And it's really difficult for people to be able to see each other and even find the humanity in the other. We get so viscerally upset and so viscerally one-sided that anything that's outside of the perspective of what we think is right becomes an attack. And that comes because we've settled. We have settled into possibly the relationship we're in, the spouse that we decided was good enough, the relationship that we thought was good enough, the job that we thought was good enough, the income level that we thought was good enough, the friends that we thought were good enough, the vacations we thought were good enough, the home we thought was good enough. All of the things that we said were good enough then allowed us and made us justify anybody else who had something different as other and wrong. And it becomes the camp of those who are settled and a camp of those who unsettle them. And that there is also a really eye-opening observation and opportunity. Because if you found that in some aspect of your life you've settled, you have a glorious opportunity ahead of you. Because it's never too late. And if you're still hearing this, if you're still breathing, then that means your purpose is still very much activated and ready for you to walk into. Your life wasn't meant to be settling. It was meant to unsettle, to attract, to agitate, to create, to spark, to share, to create coherence. And all of that is a byproduct of living an authentic version of you. And if you're living an authentic version of you, there is something very different about being around people with that type of energy. How many of you have been around someone who embodies authenticity at a level that you can almost touch? And it feels different to you when you're around them. If you've been around that type of individual that just exudes authenticity, help me understand what it feels like in the chat. What would you describe that sensation like? Give me some examples. Give me some adjectives on what that feels like to be around that type of individual. It feels amazing, authentic, exciting. It should inspire you. And a lot of folks who have this intense amount of authenticity, who live from that version, who live in that energy, when they move in the world stops and looks at them because they haven't seen that is the norm. The norm won't move in authenticity. The norm moves in masks. It's almost as if every day was Halloween. And those people who actually don't dress up become the weird ones. Right? That's how bizarre what we're doing really is. If you think about it, it's pretty crazy, right? Imagine if just tomorrow we woke up in a world where every day was Halloween. Every day. And one day a year, people would not wear their costume. And that day of authenticity would be what we call Halloween. That's essentially the life that we are walking in right now. Everyone, for the most part, that we get to interact with is giving us some version, some mask. And our language is even programmed to perpetuate it. My default answers of, how are you? I'm great, or I'm good, I'm fine. They don't even come often from a real place of what I'm truly feeling, right? We ask each other how you are. How are you? And we feel that if somebody tells us something other than I'm fine, they're weird. Oh, we don't want to talk to that person because when I ask them how you are, they actually tell me. I don't want to hear that. Why don't you just say I'm fine so that I can move on and continue talking about myself? Because that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to tell you, how many Michelobs I drank this weekend and how awesome the wrestling I was watching live at SummerSlam was. That becomes what the norm is, and that's what people are expecting to interact with and hear from you. But if you really answer the question, how are you? I'm not doing great. I hate the fact that I have to wake up every single day and I work for a company that has zero appreciation for what I'm doing. I hate the fact that I give away 50% of the money that I make and I pay it to live in this home where the landlord doesn't even take care of it. I hate the fact, or I'm not happy with the fact, that I still haven't been able to figure out what I'm going to survive on after the age of 65. Oh, and I also detest the idea that everything that I'm looking at in front of me right now, that I hear on the media and see on programming, is here to keep me sick and asleep. Well, you're somebody I shouldn't really want to ask that question to anymore because you're a weird one, right? Imagine if that's how we walked around and moved on a day-to-day basis. So again, it's not a problem that we are in these masks for the most part, because we'd really be a hard person to be around if we didn't have some of these masks, right? If you really were answering that question honestly every time somebody asked, I mean, the day would get pretty long and conversations would go either really fast because people would be like, yo, weirdo, I got to get out of here. Or they would be very deep, and we probably wouldn't get a lot done. But again, in the language that we're using with each other, it's just perpetuating the same programming over and over and over again. Another mask that I see people wear are these masks in gender, right? Let's just take, for instance, men, right? Men have this masculinity mask that we are expected to wear. When you see a man that is exhibiting anything that we look at as potentially a feminine quality, all of a sudden that becomes weird or outside, or have something to do with their sexuality, their sexual preferences, when very often it's got nothing to do with that. The reality is that all things have male and female aspects within them. Everything has a masculine and feminine aspect. There are the masculine aspects that are more driving, more logic, more forward motion, and then the others, the more creative, the more receptive, the more inspirational, the intuitive parts. And if you were just working through one of them, which is what society expects men to be, we get the Wes Watsons and we get the Andy Elliots of the world, where we just turn on the internet and here is a man that is happily and loudly degrading a female that is supposed to be their significant other, right? And it's like totally okay that that's what he is, because that's manly. That's him being a man. Is it? Is it? Yet, when you have a man on the public eye who breaks down and shares a tender moment, they're told to toughen up, man up, don't be a pussy, don't be a little bitch. Those are the words, right? These are the things that we're told as men. And the same thing happens with women. When we meet strong, powerful women, I think of my sister, right? My sister is a strong, powerful driver of a woman, but she's very feminine as well. She loves to wear dresses and jewelry and high heels, and she's very, very, very beautiful and loves to express herself in the totality of who she is. Yet when she's around men, she makes them really uncomfortable, because she challenges the idea of what they think a woman should be. A woman shouldn't be loud. A woman shouldn't be a driver. A woman shouldn't be in control. A woman shouldn't be telling a man what to do. What is that? And then when they're talking about her behind her back, they say, I don't like that woman. She's too intense, or she's too masculine. Or in fact, a lot of the times they just call her a B, right? A B word. And that's how women who have that aspect of them where they are leaning into it, or it's authentic and they express it, that's how they're treated. They're being pointed out to and called unfeminine, when it's very, very, very opposite of what it truly is. And so again, we're looking at the masks that people expect us to wear. Now, of course, if my sister wanted everybody to like her, well, she'd put on more femininity. She'd put on a different mask, right? She would try to let the men in the room feel less threatened by her because of the force that she brings into a situation, and would put on that character, that mask. So these masks are not just how we operate in work or how we operate in society with each other, or even at home with our family members. Sometimes it's even on how we are operating with ourselves. So from my own world, right? As you guys may know in my story, I grew up in an East Indian household. My father really, really, really wanted me to be a physician. It's the Indian dream that their child becomes an engineer or a doctor. And if you become an engineer or a doctor, your family now gets to get out into the community and have pride. They get to feel exalted. They get to feel like they did a great job because you became the thing that society values in that culture, right? And I would say for 15 years of my life, I chased a dream I didn't want to live. I really didn't want to live. I had no desire to become a doctor. I had no desire to be in a field where I was doing that type of work. Not because I have anything against being a doctor. I think doctors are awesome. And I think what they do is the best. And I'm so grateful that doctors exist. And I'm so happy that when I'm sick, I get to go to one. And I don't want to be that at all. But I almost killed myself. No joke. I almost killed myself. The amount of ADD medication that I consumed over 5 years to try to live my father's dream of being a doctor would have killed me. And it should have killed me. But God, thanking God, it just didn't. I was able to survive that. But imagine that 15 years of playing a character that I really didn't want to play. And had you asked me at that time, Jamil, what do you want to be? I would have said a doctor. And if you had strapped me up to a lie detector and asked me the question, what do you want to be? I would have said a doctor. And it would have shown I was telling you the truth. That's how deep the character went. I believed it. I really, really believed it. But it wasn't real. So, why do I bring this up? If right now there is an aspect of your life that is not what you want it to be, let's just say your finances aren't where they should be or where you'd like them to be. Maybe the thing that you do all day long for money, your career, is disempowering and makes you feel like you're wasting your life or wasting your day. Well, right there, you are out of integrity, right? And because you've got these masks on, it doesn't matter how many affirmations you say to yourself in the mirror. It doesn't matter how many times you make a vision board. It doesn't matter how many phone calls you make. It doesn't matter how many offers you put out. Your identity won't lie. Your frequency won't lie. And in a frequency universe, you get what you are. That's it. You get what you are. So if you're wearing a lie, that's what you'll receive. And we're going to keep playing these patterns out over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I played them. I played the patterns and I watched them continue to activate in my life over and over again. And it was exhausting. It was absolutely exhausting. I couldn't believe that I was in that same freaking story every day. And it wasn't until I understood how to really change the underlying tone, the underlying frequency, the vibration of how my cells moved, that they sang a song, that my cells sing a song that is not the lie. So take a look. What are you getting right now? What are you living? Is it what you really want? Is it what you really are? If it's not, then there's a mask. There's a character, an identity. And that identity, unfortunately, is a fake one. There are ways and tools and techniques that you can put into your life on a day-to-day basis that can help you identify and peel back the layers of the onion to get to the core, the truth of the divinity within you. I really do believe that we all have the divine within us, and in that, our job in this life is to realize that. That is the epitome of what self-realization means, to actualize within this lifetime the consciousness of the Christ, the Creator, who we really are. I've been working very hard behind the scenes, putting together a transformational journey for people who are inspired to embark on it with me. I'm calling it the Energy of Money Mastermind. You might have seen me talk about this on my social media and Instagram or on some of my YouTube videos. It begins today at 4 o'clock Pacific. If right now you are living in an identity that is not really the identity that you are, or if the identity that you have decided is you just isn't cutting it any longer, I would love for you to join me on this journey. My friend Anne will be putting a link in the comment section where you can learn more about what this will look like over the next year. It will be a year's worth of work where we will be working diligently on retuning ourselves, on changing our energy, on changing the vibration of who we are, the fractal vibration of who we are, and distilling it back to what it has always intended to be, what God intended it to be, so that we can live the life that God intends for us to live. If you are interested in learning more about it, please click on that link. And if you are here, thank you very much. There it is right there. You can speak to people on my team. And if it lines up for you, then I will see you guys at 4 o'clock Pacific for our initiation into the energy of money. And otherwise, I'll see you guys next Sunday. I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your week. And remember, you're God's kid. So get out there and start acting like it. I love you. God bless you. And I'll see you next Sunday. Take care.